here, especially in the Philadelphia or tri-state area, I should say, please go out and take your vaccine. The CDC has just released new guidelines that people who are fully vaccinated can go into areas without wearing masks. I'm sure you guys want to go out and have a good time, and it's summertime and we are all outside. So definitely do your due diligence and go get your COVID vaccine.
Yes, sir. What the man said, that's true. It's real, man. Go out there and get your vaccine, all right?
Fairly on the beat. Quack. Teacher, polo. When you do me, I will forget it. I will forget it. You eat my food, I will forget it. I will forget it. My little your man, just forget it. I will forget it. I won't try say you my manage it. Just know say. I leave my own way, boy, yeah. Boy, yeah. Boy, yeah. Me, I leave my own way, boy, yeah. Boy, yeah. Boy, yeah. I leave my own way, boy, yeah. Boy, yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We want to welcome our viewers. The live is still today. I want to say thanks to everybody for watching. This is the Lrtn live. All things considered, we have an open mic, and we have three distinguished gentlemen that's going to be coming on today. Let's talk about Dean Wilson. He's already in studio. I'm going to be bringing on him. He's going to be coming on in a few minutes. And I also have Lrtn Wahera, which is one of our major country analysts on the Lrtn. And I also have Jay Rennie Dapo. You guys are preparing themselves. We're going to be on it. So we're going to be talking a lot of good stuff today. So sit back, relax, and we'll be right back.
What's up, my Philadelphians? It's your boy McGarris and your boy Cash. We just want to take the time to just promote or get you guys to go out and take your COVID vaccine. COVID is very serious here, especially in the Philadelphia or tri-state area, I should say. Please go out and take your vaccine. The CDC has just released new guidelines that people who are fully vaccinated can go into areas without wearing masks. I'm sure you guys want to go out and have a good time, and it's summertime and we are all outside. So definitely do your due diligence and go get your COVID vaccine.
Yes, sir. What the man said, that's true. It's real, man. Go out there and get your vaccine.
My name is Portia Kamara. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Multicultural Community Family Services.
Okay, so welcome back. We want to say thank you for watching. To our audience, we want to say thank you for sitting back and relax. We got Dean Wilson, and I have a couple of guys that are going to be coming on. So we have a whole lot of things, trending issues in the Republic of Liberia, and we're going to be bringing this to you every Friday. Unfortunately, McGarrett Jackson is not here. He got some obligation. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we do anything, I want to welcome to the studio our guest, Mr. Dean Wilson. Okay, Mr. Wilson, how you doing? Welcome to the Lrtn.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm very happy to accept the invitation, and just to begin to have some frank discussions with you.
Okay.
And I hope we can both speak to each other indirectly, speaking to our own people back home and Liberians in the diaspora as well. It's a pleasure to be
Okay.
here.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So the other guys going to come in. They're going to join us. But uh, for the sake of the audience, I know you, Dean Wilson. Can you just make a little brief introduction about yourself?
Well, very simple. I am Liberian first. I have, of course, in a formative way, I migrated from Liberia some 43 years ago, and I've been in the New York, Philadelphia area for 30 plus years. Professionally, I do work with the school district of Philadelphia as well as the state of Pennsylvania, and I do consultancy work in the field of human services, more so planning, advocacy, and also reaching out to members of my community as well, like the Liberian community, which we no way can be not be a part of it because our community is a unique one, but you never can live in the U.S. without living in Liberia. It's almost you cohabited, and with all of the vexing realities of our time, you know as well as I do that Liberia is a stone throw away from here, and here is a stone throw away from Liberia because the media, you guys, are doing exceptional well to keep us interconnected. So I mean, it's just living here and living there is almost the same. Everything that affects our people back home, one way or the other, indirectly affects us as well. So I'm very happy to be on. First as an advocate, and then next as a community, just a simple resident of the community. But it's a pleasure to meet you again since Sunday. And I will
Thank
ask,
you.
how
Yeah,
have you been?
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think you are at the program and you saw the way the place was packed. You have a lot of folks was there, diverse. You have people from the ANC, people from the UP. Everybody was concerned about the program. So I saw you moderating the program. You're doing one phenomenal job. Everybody was talking about Dean Wilson. But my question to you is, how did you get connected?
Well, I think I've known, I would say, except for Alexander Cummins, I would say I pretty much know, Joseph Boyka. I've met a few times. I've met Madam Salif, and I've also met uh, the president himself. But my involvement in the program, the last Sunday was just giving back to my community. I was asked almost a call to duty, and as a resident within the community, I thought I would give something back by just helping moderating the program.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was more or less asked by the boycott team to
That's
do
good.
honor
That's
to the
great.
program. Right.
So, okay. So, what was your take? What was your take about the program?
Well, there were a lot of impressive takeaways. One of them is that, of course, I had not met. Most people will call him J&J. I had not met the former vice president for a while. The last time I was opportune to meet with him was in 2011. Was in 2011, and my immediate impression was, my first question in mind was, many people, the many pundits, his health, his resilience, how long he would have lasted, what I mean, how he would have handled the issues, and as much as I was calling to moderate, I would say I was one of those in the audience because I was just as strange to the campaign as strange to uh, uh, Ambassador Boycott myself. I had not met him again, as I said, since 2011.
Okay. So, now there was so much going on, and I think you saw the video from the Lrtn. We covered the program, and people running, and a whole lot is going on about the video that he was being controlled, he was being supervised, and a whole lot is going on the on social media. So I was there, and my personal take was, let me just give you something. First thing, I was a little bit confused, and I was disappointed in the time. I don't know what the time on the flyers they put out was 4 o'clock, and when I got there, I saw some folks frustrated. I think the place should have been packed more than that, but folks was frustrated and they left because they waited for so long. And I think the program started almost 6 something. I stand to be corrected. What would you say about the time?
Well,
What were
I
your
mean, it's a simple impression we tend to leave with everyone as Liberians. I mean, if you have to be honest, we're always late to programs. I would have anticipated an hour late, but you are right. It was about 2 hours late. So that part is accurate. Now, as far as being controlled by someone other than himself, let me just give you a frank, and you were right across from Ambassador Boykai. You were almost also away from the audience. Um, I will be very honest in saying that there were times that clarifications had to be made by one of the moderators because of the noise, and I think it was a lot of all you realize and recognize as the program got more interesting and lasted longer. There were much more noise and much more uh, going on in the hall. Many back talking, many folks in the background, and you found out yourself that it was hard sometimes from the beginning of the program to the question and answers, just maintaining control. So I wouldn't say honestly, and I would be as frank as I can be, that uh, Ambassador Boycott was being controlled, but I did also experience there were times that the questions had to be repeated, and maybe the other moderator was trying to give clarification. But my experience or my takeaway was that it was a very long program, but for the most part, uh, it was pretty much the ambassador and the rest of the crowd. And I could be wrong. Again, I didn't know what the hot mic, or what was being said. But as far as control, that would be an outreach, I think.
okay? So one thing I really admire about you was I was actually disappointed about that, but you came in and you took hold of that. Was we found a lot of men were asking questions, and the ladies were the women were not given an opportunity until you came on and said, you know what, we're gonna bring some ladies up. To what prompted you to do that?
Well, even at the point where one of the moderators or one of the persons, you realize that besides the three moderators, the vice president and myself, former vice president and myself, who were on stage at the very beginning of the program, there was also a female who was involved with the opening, just leading along with the program with
Yeah,
another brother of ours.
yeah.
And I just thought it was ready duty when I had to, in fact, get the crowd under control at that time. And I think for a program of such, I think gender equality was important. I kind of recognized that in the back were about 10 folks online and only three females. So I think in the huff of a moment, I decided, well, we would go to the three females who have been waiting for a while, just to have some balance. I think that was the only tick to it.
Okay, all right. Another thing, a lot of folks talk about the one incident where they asked the vice president, somebody from I think Grand Gita County, asked the
Right.
vice president, what you gonna do about the rural situation in Grand Gita if you have the opportunity to be the president? And he said, "Oh, I thought you guys have the bio medicine, the bio medicine." And some folks saw that to be very sarcastic. What do you think about that?
Well, I just want to go ahead from this point on, and I think we can have a better program to just stay above the fray. I think the question was asked by the former Grand Jury Association
Okay,
president
all
in
right.
the Americas, and she asked about what the ambassador's role strategy was. And he probably just decided to answer that way. He will have to further explain himself, but I thought it was one of those questions that, in fact, the question wasn't understood in the beginning. That the room was inundated with noise, So as far
Yeah.
as to how he answered it, and what he did say, that is for his taking, and you will probably have to follow up with him. But the question was, ask, and he responded the way he felt he had to. The ambassador will have to own up to his own explanation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But apart from that, I think the program in all was great. It was packed. They had a lot of folks there. And what do you think about the security?
Well,
Security when it comes
I,
to
I don't
security.
think there were any imminent risk in terms of security. Of course, I mean, as much as people want to hound, the need for security, in that hall you had, the entourage came in, and also you realize that, Liberians are normally, generally peaceful people. I didn't see any concerns in the hall that would have placed anyone at risk. I think initially, if you recognize it, the program was one big family. Whenever Liberians gather, I can say that irrespective of our political differences and whatever affiliation, party, or ethnicity, we come to a place where we gel together very well. And Sunday was one of those experiences.
Okay, that's good. All right. So now I know the vice president left. He going to Minnesota, and
That's what I heard, right?
did you have the opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with the
Well,
vice
I
president
think in
before he arrived
appreciation
or
to,
before he left? He
well,
depart.
yeah, we had follow up interaction. I just appreciation for what I did,
Good.
and I also extended to him my appreciation for just being called on, and just as a Philadelphian, I would say we did express sentiments of appreciation to each other. Yes, I had the opportunity to speak with him after.
Okay. All right. So I know he had, according to what I spoke to a couple of the guys, and I know Costa is the one heading the team, the whole entire team. When he
Right.
visited Philadelphia, a lot of folks have some reservation with Costa being the face of the vice president's stay in Philadelphia. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, Henry is Henry. I know Henry, as a junior brother, he's Henry. I would rather want to see a more apt, relationship between, and I would begin first with seditions. And, we've heard that, the seditions or the CDC party has had its own struggles. I mean, we sit outside in the U.S. and we see what's going on. As I said, you can't be here without being in Liberia, and not being here. So I said CDC first, then I will come to CPP. Again, there are some grumblings, there's some mumbling, there's disunity, and I will hope that um, what the vice president had mentioned, that he's not only vice president for those that everyone gets along with. He wants to be a candidate for all, and I would just hope the CPP will get the house in order, and also the CDC will get the house in order. But Henry is at times what Henry is, but I think there's a lot of work to be done with Henry, with the CPP, and with the body politics of Liberia. I think we're going to get more into various conversations about some of the, as I said, vexing realities in Liberia. But
Yeah.
Henry has some work to do, and the CPP also has some work to do. The ANC also has, its own work cut out for itself. How those two, parties or two supporters groups will get along could probably go a far way in helping the CPP. As far as Henry, the supporters of, he's of course a boycott supporter, the supporter of Cummings coming together, both parties putting this house in order, and the CPP as a whole putting this house in order. I think it has to be ready for the elections, and that's the step that must be. I mean, they must, in fact, pass that step. But it seems like there's a lot of confusion, within the supporting groups and the CPP as a whole. I have my own opinion about it.
Okay. All right. So let's go into the CPP since you started that because
Sure.
that was one of
Right.
the questions that were asked by the folks to the vice president.
Sure.
That my what I can understand is this, right? When you speak to Mr. Cummings, he tells you, "Oh, the CPP is strong. We're going to be okay." When you speak to the vice president, he said, "Yeah, we're going to be okay." Like over there, he said, "Oh, we're going to come together. We're going to go back, and everything is going to be okay." I listened to him on BBC. He talked about going back to Liberia and
Right.
family usually have problems, but they usually come together. But when you're listening to the surrogates from the both parties, they both collaborating political parties, there's a civil fight. And I don't know, you don't feel some sense of deceit from what they both Mr. Boaka and Cummings?
I wouldn't say the seat between Boycott and Cummins. I would say the onus is on Vice President Boycott and candidate Cummins. They both have the immediate I
responsibility.
would say that they both have the responsibility to seize what's going on.
Yeah.
There has to be a ceasefire between the supporters because ultimately the brunt of the responsibility is going to fall on Ambassador Boycott and Mr. Cummins. So they must take responsibility in making sure that their supporters will fall in line. Let's just put it that way. They have to fall in line. So the test is if Ambassador Boyka will mean what he said, that there are always, situations that happen in family. We know in our own personal household, when you have, your own children, in conflict, it is going to be the truest test of leadership that Vice President Boyka can contain his supporters, and also Mr. Cummins has to, just as the former Vice President has to. Both have to contain, they both have to make sure their houses are in order. Right now, it seems to be in disarray, but they have to fix it, and it starts with both of them.
Okay, so uh, I'm gonna be going to Charlotte, North Carolina, and
Okay,
I'm gonna be the LRT is gonna be covering the uh, ANC convention 2021. We're gonna be covering that. I hope you watch. We're gonna be
sure,
bringing that to you and to the audience. We're gonna be bringing that to you live. I'll put the flyer on the screen later on so you can see. We're gonna be in Charlotte for 3 days, from the 19th all the
awesome,
way to the 21st. We're gonna
great,
leave on the 22nd. We're
sure,
hoping, and we've been talking to folks. We're going to have Mr. Cummings on the LRTN to see if we can have some word with him. We might have an interview. We're planning to see if we can set up a studio down there and then have folks listen to Mr. Cummings himself from the LRTN. LRTN is the network based in Philadelphia. It's for the tri-state area. We've been
great.
serving the community almost 4 years now, and you know about that. So we're hoping that if we get down there, you can be a part of our panel to be able to ask some critical questions relating to the CPP and national issues in the country. Now, let me come to you. Let me ask you something, Mr. Wilson.
Sure.
Uh, you see the situation in Liberia with the ritualistic killing and all the killing that's going on in Liberia. You know Mr. Talbot, and you know uh, the folks, some of the folks that passed. What's your take on that? Well, what you think? What you think is what would you say to people? You think Liberia is safe?
Well, I don't personally live in Liberia, but as I said, it's almost like a leg here, and a leg in Liberia. And you guys have done wonderful in making sure that no matter where you are, irrespective of the distance, media has merged both communities, our folks home and here. Um, there have, as I use it, there are some vexing realities. Let's begin with maybe about, I would say, let's do the count. Let's start with the four auditors that were that were found dead, and let's talk about the three missing men. And let's go next to the EPS deputy, uh, I think director, if that's the title.
Yes.
Then we go next to the immigration lady. Then we go next to a Talbot that was found dead, and go
Yeah.
next to a Talbot that was found dead. Um, I guess what is vexing and what we all pray for is that there has to be culmination to an end to whatever the investigations are. And I don't know if they're murders or they're just accidents or whatever we want to call them. I think what is unsettling, I would say, first as a Liberian, is that I think those type behaviors or those experiences are belated. We've come as a nation, we've come a long way with some real bad past and experiences. This government has the responsibility to bring closure to in each of those situations. Now, I'm not in any way faulting or saying anything other than as a Liberian who believes in peace, who does not want to see any Liberian dead, missing, who does not want to see any bad reminders of the past, that this government has more to do in bringing closure. Those investigations that they are ongoing, they have to end. Number one. Number two, I think what needs to be strengthened as well is the communication gap that exists between whether it's the police, the justice ministry, the president himself, and the rest of the nation. I think it will augur well the president as head of this government to have periodic briefings. This is the first time in my own experience that we've had our leader who has been more or less muted. I mean, you have lived in Liberia on a different administration, Mr. Taylor's, Sirleaf's. I mean, for me, I go back as far as Tuckman and Talbot,
Yeah.
and even the interim arrangements. Not to have a president who communicates and just show empathy, or just tell the country where we are when these things happen, is at times more or less a disservice to the president himself and the country. So I think, again, besides the communication coming to a rapid end, the president has to do more in communicating with his people and talking to them when these incidents happen. We see that has not been happening. And again, I'm first a Liberian than any partisan or any person that I would choose to support. But I think that is a gap in communication that has to be merged, and it starts with the president. So that would be my own take on it.
Okay,
I'm
so
not saying,
I
and let me
know I
be
listened
very
to the
and let me be very clear. I'm not
yeah,
adjudicating in any of the cases. I don't know the facts. I don't know the experiences,
okay.
and that's more the reason why when these things are lingering, there has to be an approach to making sure the investigations end. And I'm calling on the president to communicate more to the people of his country, and I will take that position.
Okay, so let me just come in. I know we they had the we I listened to the former police director Gregory Como and A.B. Kumar, and they were talking about a lot of stuff like lack of resources. We're talking about the economy. The economy is bad. You got folks they having people arrested, taken them to jail, and they still have to free them because the prison company is overcrowded. There are a whole lot of things going on. Now, what I wanted to ask you: do you think this have to do with competence, or it have to do with just lack of resources from your perspective?
Well, I mean, we've had governments and we've had uh, arrangements during the war, right? And we've had arrangements, governments in times of peace. The issue of competence or the issue of lack of logistics would all be secondary. Let me be very clear with you. I'm not in the security, apparatus. I don't know exactly how many vehicles are there, personnel, logistics. I don't know the competence. I don't know what criteria these people will work under. But from an outside looking in, I think first as a Liberian, uh, it has to be said clearly that communication, is broken. So if it's an issue of competence, that has to be fixed. If it's an issue of logistics, then the voices have to be heard from the president outside. There's nothing wrong with seeking support and assistance when these visits are made internationally. We are one of the poorest countries on earth. But when they hear you asking as a leader for resources, and if you are communicating with your countrymen that you need resources, the first step is beginning to say it, and we are not hearing it. So the idea of logistics or competence is the second step, but it has to come from the voice of this government. Seeking help, meeting, traveling, getting donations, getting vehicles, getting strength to the security sector. Those are things that come from leadership. And we haven't seen much of that from the president down. So the question of competence and logistics is on the second tier, but the upper tier is with the president still. And there's still much to be desired.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say we're glad to have Mr. Dean Wilson on the Lrtn Live update. And we have Lieutenant Heron and Rennie Dapple going to be joining us very shortly. So, we're going to take our first commercial break and we'll be back. We will continue with the discussion. Now, if you have a question you want to ask, something you want to ask Mr. Wilson, you can post your question and we will be able to read that up to him. So
Well,
for
and
now, just sit
also,
back.
if you have an open opportunity to have callers in, I'm extending the invite.
Okay,
Besides
that's
just
fine. That's
questions,
fine. So
I'd
we're
be
gonna
more
take
than happy to talk
our
to my
we'll take
to
our
my
first
fellow
commercial
Liberians.
break and
Sure.
we'll be right back.
Thank you.
What's up, my Philadelphians? It's your boy McGarris and your boy Cash. We just want to take the time to just promote or get you guys to go out and take your COVID vaccine. COVID is very serious here, especially in the Philadelphia or tri-state area, I should say. Please go out and take your vaccine. The CDC has just released new guidelines that people who are fully vaccinated can go into areas without wearing masks. I'm sure you guys want to go out and have a good time, and it's summertime and we are all outside. So definitely do your due diligence and go get your COVID vaccine.
Yes, sir. What the man said, that's true. It's real, man. Go out there, get your bikes.
My name is Portia Kamara. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Multicultural Community Family Services.
Okay, we want to say welcome back. And we still have our guest, Mr. Dean Wilson, is on here. And serious issues talking about. I just got a message that Mr. Dapo is going to be joining us shortly. So Mr. Wilson is still here with us. Like he gave an open invite that if you have anything to say, you want to ask some questions, this is an open mic. You can actually call and and ask your question. Okay. So Mr. Wilson, let's go back to the situation in Liberia. Okay. Uh, I think you heard about the scorecard, Liberia scorecard where we fail. I think this is the third time we feel that. And what was your take on that?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, I think that is something that our country as a whole has struggled with. If you go back as far as even during the interim arrangement leading up to Madam Salif over the last 12 years and up to now. But you also realize that at some point there was some passing in the latter part of Madam Salif's years. So we have to be honest that you need a team that will understand, wrestle with the issues, what across the various sectors. So I wouldn't say I've given up on the government, but I think there's much to be done. They need to find a way to meet those criteria that have been set, because you just don't fill a pass. You have a body of work to do over a period of time. They have not made the necessary effort, and I will be very dismissive to anyone who would say that the failure of this government on the opposition is something that we should all tolerate. That's total nonsense. I think the government has failed. The government needs to pass. The government knows what the benchmarks are, and the information is there. Go back and see how the last government passed. Documents are there, the roadmaps are there, and you just need to do more work. Go and dig it out and meet whatever criteria that has to be met. The way it works is that there are steps, concrete steps that have to be taken. When you take those steps, right, and you meet the criteria, you get a check mark. When you have not met the criteria, you fail. And as far as I know, the only government that's in Liberia is the CDC. So the CDC has failed, and they must take responsibility for it. Don't blame it on anyone else.
Okay, I listened to the president a couple of times where, one time I think he talked about when he used to play football, he had something called the substitute bench. So when you're playing on the field, the coach watches you. If you're not performing well, they take you off the field and they bring somebody in to replace you. And he gave a warning that the substitute bench is available for anybody. So what do you think? It's been almost 4 years and they haven't this president haven't said anything. You don't have there's no reshuffle. Do you think it's time for folks here for head rules?
I have no opinion on that. My only opinion on to whether it's time for heads to roll or not. This is the team the president has. He's president. If he's happy with the performance, then he keeps it. If he's not happy, he changes it. But I'll tell you one thing: ultimately, no matter what happened, he's taking a decision that he's going to fill with his team, or he's going to pass with his team. So if we're getting passing test marks, one incident, a recent one, or we're getting filling
how can you
marks.
keep the team when the team is you got a lot of filling, you got a lot of killings going on, and a whole lot of things going on that the folks back home are not happy about. So why will you want to keep the thing? Can you
The
can
work,
you
the work
elaborate
of
more on
the
that? Don't you
work.
think it's time to bring the new folks on? I mean, get some
I,
technical
I,
for someone
I,
to do the
I,
work.
well, I'm not going to be. I'm going to be
You
very
are a
fair in
patriotic
answering.
citizen, Dame.
No,
So
I'll be very fair in answering this question.
okay.
If the team the president has is performing the way it is, then the results are clear. If the team is passing, he's passing. If it's failing, then he's failing. The buck stops with him. That would be my only response to it. So the proof is right there for your taking. But as far as whether he wants to change it or not, that's his prerogative. He took the oath of office.
Okay. All right. So we're still waiting for the other guys to come in. Okay, Mr. Wilson.
Sure.
Uh, I think you did extremely. I will go back to the town hall, which you did extremely well. A lot of folks were talking about your energetic reaction at the town hall. I saw you sitting on the panel. You were sitting there,
Right.
but later on you left from there. Why?
Well, I mean, if imagine, just go back a little bit and let's hypothesize. If all four presidents were sitting on the panel, right, with Lobo, the
Let,
other
let me let
gentleman.
me let me hold you 1 minute, ladies and gentlemen. We just got our first guest in studio, and we're going to be bringing him on. Let's welcome Mr. J. Rennie Dapple to the panel. How you doing, Mr. Dapple?
Yes, Joe. Good evening to you and good evening to Eugene Wilson. And thank you for the opportunity here. And let me say, I'm very sorry for being late. You guys know the routine in the United States. There are so many circumstances that lead to these things. So again, but I've been watching the conversation since Mr. Eugene started. So I think I'm up to speed with that. But thank you for bringing me on and thank you for the recognition.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson, yeah, let's continue. You were sitting on the stage, and people were expecting you to be. They thought you were gonna be on the panel. You were gonna be one of the guy talking. But later on, you left from there, and we saw you doing the unusual. Uh, Actually running the whole, almost like running the whole show. Why did you? Or were you asked to do that, or it was something that was necessary for you to do as
Well, I
a
mean,
community leader?
well, no, I mean, let's hypothesize a little bit. You had three moderators, and you had the ambassador boycott, and you had people who were with it from 4 o'clock, up to 7. So, I mean, what was the purpose of them being there? So, I mean, my point was we could have sat there, the three moderators and the former vice president, chit chatted all we wanted. But I think my intuition was that we engaged the public, we engaged everyone, and I think that what I was informed was that it was an interactive session. So I thought the only way better to have done it was to, I mean, few questions from the two other moderators and the vice president asking questions online, but I wanted to hear, the intense spirit of the people. So I mean, that was my intuition. I thought that was the right way to go. But anyway, if you look at the program, it still would have been an answer, a question and answer period. Whether it came early or not, but I think it was a wholesome experience. We had to include those people who are with it 3 hours. It was all about those people that wanted to find out what he had to say, wanted to ask questions. And I think the questions that were asked were across all spectrum. I think it was a wonderful experience. So engaging
Okay, a lot
the
of folks,
hall was important.
some of the questions that were asked, because what I did a post analysis after everything. I brought some of the guys, I asked some questions, I spoke to some individual, and according to them, they said uh, the question was not answered properly. They didn't really get what they wanted to. They wanted to. Oh, we just lost Mr. Tim Wilson. Let me bring Mr. Dapo in. Mr. Dapo, you there? I think you watched the program at the church with the vice president interacting with the public. What was your take? And I like your background. It says start. I don't know, start, stop. You got a whole lot going on behind you there. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
so what's your take? What's your take for the program we had? They had.
Well, I mean, there are so many things that I can hit on when it comes to that program. I think Mr.
Mhm.
Jim is back. You want to
Yeah,
go
Mr.
ahead?
Deem is back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just got a disconnect. I'm back
Yes.
now. But I was
Okay.
just finishing up by
Okay.
saying that
So
that
let
was
me
an
let me make
opportunity.
hold on 1 minute, Mr. Dapple. Let Mr. Dean finish, then I will bring you right back. Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Well, I just felt like, the questions that were asked were from the minds of our people across all. People came from all settings, a spectrum of Liberians. And I will be honest in saying one thing. I would take all those questions first over some of the responses. But I think overall, those questions were very meaningful, and they were good questions. The questions range from the killings, the vice president's plan, former vice president's plan, the conflict with CPP, with Cummings. It went further into, his own purpose and for running. And those questions are fair questions. As to how he may have come across or answer it, it is subjective as to who attended and their own opinion of what happened. And I think I will rest right there.
Okay, Mr. Dapple, let's come back to you. You say you have a whole lot of you got a lot of things to say about the program. What was your take on the program?
Well, first of all, the organization of the program was very poorly attended. I mean, not poorly attended, but poorly arranged. I saw people just double crossing each other like a snake in a kind of jar, just moving over each other, and those were very distracted and behavior of the organization to make sure that they don't have a seating. I mean, there should have been some type of conference format of seating where official, including Ambassador Boca, will sit at on the platform and be able to take question, but you saw George Lobo moving here and there, almost like it's almost to the beginning of the broadcast where you find people running here and there. So I mean, it depends on who will speak to you. But as a professional person, I just thought that action was very poor. As far as the attendance go, I think like Brother Wilson said, the attendance were well uh, 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 met expectation, and I believe that people are very curious to know what Mr. Borka would do. But I think Mr. Borka himself failed to really convince not only those who went there with open minds, but some of who have different perception of Mr. Borka. Number one, Mr. Borka has a record that aligns with Ellen Johnson's Salif. And yet and still, he hasn't told his follower, he has not told the Liberian people whether his campaign, the central message of the campaign will tailor to the Ellen administration that he served as vice president, whether he going to differentiate his new strategy, his new political platform. Because remember, Mr. Booker got defeated by George Weah because after 12 years, he could not defend that record of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. So for me, I think Mr. Booker can have all the interview he wants. He can say everything he wants, but intellectually and historically, I don't think Mr. Booker is much convincing to me for the fact that he has not been able to inform the Liberian people whether he would support Eddie Johnson's Sirleaf 12-year administration, or he has something that is not only different from Ellen but will be better than George Weah. Secondly, Mr. Borga has not even declared his political party statement of purpose. And what are the indicators? Listen to you ask Mr. Wilson question about the Millennium Challenge 20 indicators where President Weah back to back 4 times in a row failed. What are the concern that he has, that is Mr. Borka with the political party statement of purpose? So for me, I just see the whole activities as a warm-up. I think they can learn from what other would say. I think they got very big opportunity to improve on these things. And I think I will stop there so far, Joe, but that was just part of my observation.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, let me bring you in. What Mr. Dapp was saying concerning the crowd moving back and forth from the beginning of the program. I was a little bit disappointed too when I came in there, and but later on, I think it got stable, and folks were able to, ask the question. Um, Mr. Dapple, to you, who was talking about the scorecard, and you just mentioned that. I was just asking Mr. Wilson. Uh, I know you are an environmentalist, so you understand what it means to have a scorecard, what it means to work to the right thing, to be able to pass such responsibility. So, what would you say about the uh, the scorecard? Would you say let me ask you this: would you say this is time for heads to roll?
Well, I mean, that is a belated comment because, as you know, I don't know what Mr. Dean Wilson knew or not, but I played a very significant role in running the campaign for George Weah in 2017. And I promise that if he doesn't do the right thing, I will come back here and criticize him. And that one good lesson that I have learned from Liberian politics since I started engaging them in 2010. Liberians don't like to hear the truth, and they just want you to sing praise their leaders. And I think the same praising of Mr. Weah has finally learned Mr. Weah exactly the trophy he wants, and that means he has feel back to back. As far as your question go in regards to the performance of the Millennium Challenge program, this is a program that Ellen introduced, and the very broker we are talking about here, thank God to him that he was alongside with Emerald Cullen, and they brought such a package to the country. And and I think they did 2017 in the past, and I think early in the Weah administration they did 2018. So Ellen got a very good, successful record on that because Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, despite the challenges she had, despite some of the errors she made in her government, she really understood what it means to meet expectations of international community and project. But on the contrast, Mr. Weah doesn't understand these things because people are within the Mr. Weah administration who feel that they know it all and they will not ask anybody for anything. So as far as the failure goes, I think to your point, it's not only environmentalists who are aware of running a scorecard. Every institution, from a community base to a county base to a country base to a private institution, public institution, like Mr. Wilson said, when you have a program, and you have to recognize that you own that program and you must do everything to ensure that that program meet expectation. Unfortunately, the CDC government doesn't understand the language of what Mr. Wilson mentioned. And I think he's right when he said the government failed because the government is in charge of that program. But let me say this to the government. In order to effectively prevent what has happened, like Mr. Wilson said, go back and look at the detail. That's the case study he's talking about. You must understand what your past administration did. That is something we call handover and take over. But Mr. We are just took over, but never look for the handover that was supposed to compensate his taking over. So they fail in that. But one thing that could have prevented the failure is known issue. I established a framework, whether the frequency will be quarterly, every 3 months, because the government has a fiscal year where they're supposed to run every 3 months, and make sure those are in charge of the institution, the president or whoever is in charge of the cabinet position to make sure that the program are effectively and monitor to determine the progress. They fail on these things. And when you look at the failures of the entire program, they fail in, for example, regulations, for example, trade, for example, primary education. That tells me that our institution in our country, while it is true that the framework is there, the capacity is not informed to carry out these programs. So the failure of these indicators, it is something that is very deep in our progress when it comes to the Liberia Human Development Index. And now one thing I'm expecting Borka and Mr. Cummings to begin to emphasize within their political party statement of purpose, because if you look at all those different indicators, it is laser focused on our institution. And if we're not putting in time to build this institution to pass these things, the overall performance will say that our institutions are weak, and it is weak because of our capacity.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me come to Mr. Let me come to Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson, you hear Mr. Dapo talking about the statement of purpose. He's talking about the statement of purpose, and Mr. Braga said for 40 something years. I think you heard him talking about working back in LPRC, all his experience. He wanted a guy who bring people together and all of that. Do you think he need to come up and explain himself anymore? Because he's already, the records are there according to what I'm hearing and what the folks are saying. He's been working for 40 something years. Do you think that's necessary?
Well, I mean, Mr. Doppel, we agree that we all, like even in real life, we have people who come in as regular employees, they become supervisors, they become manager, and some are successful to becoming heads of organization or president. I would rather take the opposing view that he may have 40 years of working in government, even 12 years as vice president. I mean, he's not running for vice president. So when you serve in different capacities, and what he's done in LPMC or may have done in agriculture, or may have done as vice president, in some instances, it may be a good predictor of what you would do in a higher position, but he's running for president. And, in some ways, I agree with Mr. Dapo that he's running for president and he has to articulate his vision. And I will be very honest, to be frank with you. One of the challenges he has is that when you've had 12 years, of what, to me personally, in my own purview, in my own lenses, when you have 12 years with international backing, with resources, attention to Liberia, first female president, Western Africa, and with the beautiful, wonderful support. But Dapo joined me with the host. We look 12 years back. I mean, where is the infrastructure? We don't see roads. We don't see electricity. We don't see any water supply. We don't see a functional health system. So whether it's Borkai or Ellen, I would put the brunt on Ellen. let's transfer all of that to we as administration. Like my dear brother has mentioned, the buck stops with him. Before you came on top with the question was, he hasn't changed anyone in 4 years. He hasn't
Yes.
done this.
Yeah.
So my answer to that is that Ellen failed, I would say, as a Liberian. I mean, we got to be very mindful of our first responsibility as citizens. If I look 12 years back and I haven't seen the fundamental change in terms of road infrastructure, just because you can't have investment if you don't have electricity. And ours is a small country. You don't have the infrastructure. But after 12 years omnipresent, I mean, go back. If she had gone one to say, I will go to all the countries, 58 countries I visited, and tell everyone the same song. I need lights. I need lights. I need lights. That would be
No,
lights to me.
but Mr. Dean
But
Wilson,
but
don't
let
you
me
think
let
you're
me
being
go to
very
your
unfair?
let me go to your
If you
answer
say going
now.
back 12 years, looking
Well,
at the early administration, you want to say that there was nothing that was done? You didn't see any
so I
vast,
never said that. I
change
didn't say
acts?
that. Dapo will share with me. But let me come to your question, like you asked about boycott. Tobo was vice president for 19 years. And we saw when Tobo took over after the death of Tuckman. And we call him Speedy. He did what he had to do. So when boycott takes over after 12 years, you're watching as vice president, you're seeing everything, but you're not president. And there's a precedence to that. But let me come to the real answer to your question.
Uh-huh.
And I want to be very honest with you in saying this. Boycott hasn't shown us anything as president. But Mr. Weir has shown us, like the brother said, he's a founding member and advocate, and he was part of CDC. If you ask me today, in all honesty, all right, we don't have resources. And I agree, there was a plunge in what money came into the country after Omil left. But it goes back to what he's saying, what I'm saying. If you have an institution, it's one thing, not to have resources. But if you have an institution, even with the Millennial Exchange, the roadmap is there. People don't fund countries because they like you or don't like you. You do a needs assessment, you see what you need, and then you try to get money. But at eminent risk to Liberia right now is security. I'm not expecting this government to have money. I'm not expecting this government to do, much as Ellen has done. But I am thinking that fundamentally, uh, the foundation has to be set. For some reason, whatever element put in place has eroded. Now we're seeing the results. And the buck stops where we are. If the results are clear that we are is maintaining the institution and he's passing, he's communicating with his people, and he's keeping his ministers on par. If he's making the effort, we'll see it. If we see that he's not, communicating with his people, he's not keeping his ministers in check, he's not keeping the institutions alive, we'll see it through his results. Right now, I will be very honest with you and say that, and Dapo, I hope you join me in saying that the government has failed in many aspects, from communication, the millennial exchange, security, missing persons, cleaning the city. I mean, all these things are evident. It's not coming on this platform that's going to change the truth. I mean, it is what it is, and we have to say it. That's our first responsibility as Liberians. I gave you a job now as an environmentalist. I send you to EPA, and you have colossal damage to our soil, environment, waste. Companies are operating as they are, and you don't have at least minimum standards set. It's one thing you may not have the money to regulate, but if we see you have the standards and you lack the fund, I would say Dapo is doing well. But if you don't have the standards, you don't appreciate it, the systems are eroding. It's a different argument from money. Everything seems to be falling apart in Liberia, even with the security. So I think that was my answer to that. I may have taken too long. Barker still has to prove to us his vision. Tobo did when he left Tuckman. He has to be clear, like Dapo is saying, what are your policies? Why do you want to be elected? But before we get to even that point, he's chairman now of CPP, he has to put his house in order. So on VOA, he said he will put it in order, right? Cummins too has to put his house in order. All this bickering, your followers one against the other, Costa against the other people, and all this. This is all nonsense. And I blame it on Burkhardt and I blame it on Cummins. And now George Weah has a different, it's a different argument. I think to be honest with you, George Weah has shown us what he can do in 4 years, and what he will do in the next 2 years, and if you give him 6 more years. But I mean, that's a different decision for the voters to make. But so far, I think I see failure, and I'm beginning to see failure in the CPP. And I know I would stop there for Brother Dapo to come in, for you to come in. But
Okay,
I'm going to
so
always
before
speak
we
as a
go further,
Liberian
I
first.
have the audio. I'm gonna play for the vice president interview on the BBC. I want you to listen to it, and we will go from there. So here we go. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm almost there. Okay, I'm having a little hard time having that, but I think you listen to the audio of the vice president, Mr. Dapo, on BBC. So let me play that again. Let me try and see. I think I got it.
Well, if you can't get it, I remember it forbidden. I
Okay,
can
all
tell you
right.
every step along the
And I
way, and
think
Dapo also
Dapo
did.
also listened to that too on BBC, right, Dapo, Mr. Dapo?
Yes, I did, Joe.
Okay, so he talked about a house coming together, and the house where I mean, family they can have problems, and when he get back to Liberia, he want to call everybody to come together and be able to resolve the problem. But my thing is this: okay, the vice president have been mute for a little while, and if you look in Liberia, you see that Alexander Cummings is going from town, the villages, all the counties, he's visiting all the different counties. Or do you guys think it's even necessary for the vice president to come out and campaign, because he's well known, people know him, people know his record, and do you think it matters at this point?
Are you starting the question with me or
With you, Mr. Dapo. Then we
uh,
go to Mr. Wilson.
all right, yeah. First of all, Honorable Borga need to first assess what has happened during the Cummings term as CPP chairman, and what also occurred during the terms of Nomdi Kanga. And what I would say here is Honorable Borga, as the statement and the elder within the CPP, he allowed Mr. Yue to run the program. Most often you will see Mr. Yue coming out and speaking on the issue. I don't know the role of Mr. Yue, but I do know that when the CPP was established, Mr. Yue had his term he served. And while serving his term, I don't think there were a lot of overlaps of people getting in your way explaining things. The fact that Honorable Borka did not allow Normally to run her own show, come up with a statement, and be the one to be the first presenter of information from within the CPP, but allow Mr. Yue to run the show, that tells me that Mr. Yue is micromanaging the program. And to extend that outside, the behavior of Henry Costa, no, Liberia came from a 14-year civil war.
2017.
Let me hold you there, Mr. Dapo. I was able to get the tape, so let me play the tape for the sake of the audience, okay? And we can continue
Right.
about the.
An easy opposition alliance.
Okay.
Presidency in 2017, losing to George Weah. Well, he could get a second bite of the cherry at elections due in 2023. But would he want to? Well, at the moment, he's chairman of an uneasy opposition alliance known as the Collaborating Political Parties, or CPP. Mr. Boakai is currently in the United States and has been speaking to Focus on Africa from Maryland. So, first question, does he still want to be president of Liberia?
Very much so. Not an ambition, but it's a desire to serve my people in the area that I see a lot of deficiency.
You call this a desire to serve your people, but in 2017, your people rejected you in favor of George Weah.
Well, let's say it that way, because we accept the will of a democratic society, but I know I wasn't rejected.
Well, you lost the election.
Great, that's how we say it.
So, in 2023, what makes you think that the Liberian electorate will change its mind?
The Liberian electorate have found out that they made a mistake, and that mistake need to be corrected. And that is shown in all of the things that are happening in Liberia, and I'm very, very sure that the Liberians have now remade up their minds.
And the election in 2023 would mean that you'd be 78 years old. You'd be going against Mr. Weah, comparatively youthful in his 50s. Health-wise, would you be fighting fit to take him on and be able to endure the rigors of the campaign?
In terms of fitness, I'm very fit. In terms of being able to compete, I'm very, very capable. And we are not right now talking about age. I'm in very good health. And may be in his 50s, but he's not doing what the people want. The people want somebody who is capable, fit, and able to lead them by example.
So let's look at the politics then. I mean, there seems to be a problem with the political equation, if you like. I mean, at least from your end, you are in a coalition group. You're collaborating with political parties, which you're currently the chairman of. But this is a fractious coalition, isn't it? You guys are divided, and there's been internal wrangling. You know the old saying that a house divided cannot stand. Can it stand on the verge of, if it's on the verge of collapse, your political coalition?
This is a normal process in our organization, and you do have issues. What is important is that we are able to resolve them, and that's what matters.
Have those issues been resolved? And in fact, what are those issues?
Well, the issues were like you would know that we had some problem with the framework document, and those issues that have been discovered. I just took over as the chairperson. I came here, and as people know me, I'm good at resolving issues. When I go back, we definitely will resolve those issues.
Now, you say some of the issues had to do with the framework document, which is actually the beating heart of any political party and establishment. Now, if you can't agree on that, the most basic of things, what are the prospects of you winning an election and governing your country?
We haven't reached the point where we say we can agree on that. We are saying that the issues that we have, we're going to resolve them. And I know once we resolve those issues, we move forward.
Joseph Boakai, former Vice President of Liberia, speaking to me from the United States.
So, Mr. Dapa, I will let you continue, but let me ask you this. Vice Presidency, when he returned, do you think he's supposed to return or he's supposed to settle or do something before coming to the States?
Well, I don't know whether you noticed this or not, but you are mute on your side.
Oh, I'm mute?
No, you're not mute.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear, but your image is frozen. But
okay.
Yeah, your
right,
image is frozen. But I can hear you. Everything seems to be okay. Yeah. So
Okay.
as I was saying before the audio interruption came, which is in line with what I was already saying. Honorable Boakai, as part of the leadership responsibility of each term per member of the CPP, from URIC to Commies to Numbly and now Boakai, when you look at how the leadership per every term was handled, I think Numbly Kanga was really, macro-managed by URIC. He ran everything, and Honorable Boakai as a stickman sat there in the midst of a lot of things that were taking place. They didn't really inject something in there to say, let my voice be heard on certain issue. He allowed that to overfill, and it flowed all around. Another thing too that is tarnishing to the image, and I think if it comes to the interview, I will start from bottom to top. Leadership management. And the reason they asked Honorable Boca about the issue, and he said that when you get back, Honorable Boca, there's something in the background that you, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm very sensitive to things like that because that kind of serve as a distraction, but I will keep going on. But again, the BBC question as to what Mr. Boca would do or what is going on within the CPP. One, leadership management. Honorable Boca, after 12 years, and plus the other additional year he has served as a public servant, is yet to have a strong both hands, both feet on leadership management. It doesn't necessarily be internal, also external, because Honorable Boca need to understand that we Liberians, we are from different background, different culture of professional ethics. When you see Aaron Costa going out there and using all the strong profanity, it's one thing to see him using the profanity because there can be a disclaimer when these things happen. But when you see Aaron Costa standing or sitting next to Honorable Boca, to me, it poses an ethic issue and it also poses a leadership responsibility to Mr. Boca leadership. So when he was asked about the conflict within the CPP, I would expect Mr. Boca to say, you know what, we had a discrepancy with regards to documentation and we have resolved the first phase, we are working on the second phase. But for Honorable Boca to tell us that, oh, when I get back, I will see what I can do. That tells me that he doesn't have the staff or the staffer to look at these things. The second interview has to do with his health and fitness, which the BBC guy projected. By 2023, he will be 78 years old. You and I know that as a public figure, and this is something that I struggle with many Liberians abroad. Once you become a public servant, your record, especially your medical record, your financial record, should be published. We are seeing that in so many debates across the United States here. Honorable Boca has acknowledged that he has pacemaker that is part of his organ system. We are very concerned because history has shown that General Buhari from Nigeria spent 9 months in the UK and the government was not run effectively. People are saying that Boca is ready for the change, but he's yet to tell us from a medical examination standpoint, whether it's a medical certificate, to say, yes, I believe that I'm fit, because Honorable Boca is not a medical doctor. He has to be given a certificate of clearance from a medical doctor whose license is on the line to say you are fit. Let me just give you another example. The football player that we watched on the field, from the ambassador, President Weah, who plays soccer, it was not a day that Mr. Weah said he was fit to play the game. It was medical staff who came and said, yes, Mr. Weah is fit because he has to go through medical exam. So Honorable Boca is telling us that, oh, I'm fit to be president, or I'm fit to do a piece of job, but we know he had medical condition. Is he now saying that he's a medical doctor to give himself a clean bill of health? So I see that as an dishonest answer to what Honorable Boca said, because he's not a medical practitioner, and we know he has a problem. Record. He rejected, or he refused, or he neglected to accept the fact rejection, and I think that has to do with some shame because he got defeated. But rejection, defeat, it makes no difference. He was rejected because he ran on a record that the Liberian people did not appreciate for 12 years, and that is why I'm coming after him and his staff that they need to differentiate himself from Eddie Johnson study, because the rejection he's talking about, it is the record that he earned from Eddie for 12 years. But he called it, so he came back to what? Lose. I would rather take the word rejection. But he said, oh, that is the word lose. With lose, reject, those are all in the negative quadrant of trying to determine how successful he is. So I think the interview for me was divided into three parts. The record that he stuck with and lost to, or got rejected by the Liberian people against Weah. His health, he needs to be clear with that. And the leadership management within the CPP, ethically, morally, that is public morality, he's not living up to those standards. And like Mr. Dean said, we must hold people accountable for what we believe they should do. If many Liberians believe that Joe Boca is the person who will take after Weah, he needs to start to set this tone. He needs to start to set standard. Do not allow Costa or anyone to come in his name and start to insult him. Last one before I stop. Reverend Jeremiah Wright, who married Obama or are said to be corrected, and even graced Obama 2 children. When Obama was running, and I think D was will agree with me, Reverend Red was a very radical guy who disagreed with most things in America that represent American value. What Obama did, you are in Philadelphia. He came to the Constitution Center and publicly denounced Reverend Wright after several attempts to calm him down. And that's why Obama made 2-term history, because he stood for what was right and what was wrong. So I will stop
Okay,
there.
Mr. Dapo, let me hold you right there. Mr. Wilson, I think you watched the election in America where you had Hillary Clinton going against Barack Obama. There were a whole lot of disputes and a whole lot of things that went on between them. But at the end, they all came together. I see a lot of people beating on Henry Costa for the vice president, using him as the face and having Henry Costa around him. The politics in Liberia, people go after each other. They fight for I mean, to gain political will, and at the end, people support each other. So Costa went after the vice president. We all know, we are aware of that. So do you think should that be a problem for the vice president having Costa? I mean, Costa supporting the vice president, should that be a problem? And another thing I wanted to ask both of you, all right? Do you think the CPP should be dissolved, Mr. Wilson?
Well, let me go back point by point to what my dear brother had mentioned.
Yeah.
I agree
Before you
with
go
that.
there, can you talk about the CPP being dissolved? Do you
Well,
think it's a time?
I will come to.
This is the time that they should be dissolved. Do you think?
I totally disagree. But let
Okay.
me go point by point what the brother just presented. I agree
Okay.
with two positions he's taken. One, you use the Turbo and Tokman 19 years on the Tokman by Turbo. Turbo, most people would say is the best president. Boyka still has to say, the brother is saying why he wants to be president. And I think he wants to, the only record he has is what Ellen ran on. And I agree with what the brother is saying. He has to separate the vision on Ellen Sirleaf and the vision of Joseph Boycott. That's a gap that needs to be that needs to be merged in terms of his vision. I also agree with the brother that one, I think he had first said Boycott was sitting when Uri is doing all the talking. Boycott just took over as CPP chair. And during the Uri talk, back and forth with the document, Yumdi was coincidentally turning over. Fairness to Boycott, if he says I'm on a foreign mission trip and I'm going to go back and have it resolved, and he just became chairman, I think it's only fair to see what he does. Now, if he gets back and he doesn't resolve it, he's failed to bring the CPP together. Should the CPP dissolve right now? No, I don't think so. There are so many steps to who will be the candidate. If you know there is the VS, or there are different steps, primaries, whether they're going to do black voting, that process still has to play out. But I think Boycott needs to go back in time. What I would think Mr. Boycott should do is easier to say Mr. Boycott than former vice president or ambassador. What Mr. Boycott needs to do is that if I am head and the one who needs to be elected, and I said it before my dear brother came on, keep your house in order. If there's someone who's toxic, I mean, he had an answer at the town hall meeting that he's not only going to be president for one person, the good people, the bad people, and everyone. When somebody asks about the Costa question, the Euro question. If that's the image that Boycott wants to reflect in his behalf, the Costa being there, being toxic, using profanity, then it means that Boycott knows it's going to reflect on who he is. It's a clarion call to Mr. Boycott to continue Mr. Costa. Just as it's a clarion call to Mr. Cummings to continue some of the high school running for, a high school, what you call a student body president, or the chattering. he has to contain his group just like Boyka has to. But if Boyka say, I need time to go back, I'm just taking over the trip I'm on, coincidentally, I just started. We all know he just took over before he came. Let's give him time. But I agree with you. He has to set his vision apart from what Ellen. For me personally, I think Ellen failed as president. After 12 years, I don't see anything. That
So if
is
you say Ellen failed,
vision. But let me enter what I'm saying.
okay.
Where I would disagree with my dear brother and friend, and I think he articulates well, is that we have Biden here who's 78. We have Bill Clinton who was president. He had two pacemakers in his heart. He got people who are. The question then is, if we're doing a health test, fine. That is a criteria that I encourage my brother, like he's saying. Maybe the country is too gruesome, it's too complex, the security is broken, everything is broken. You need a president who will get up early, get to work like Speedy Turbo used to do. That's a side of an argument that we have to appreciate what the brother is saying. But if Workout says he's healthy, the pacemaker, I don't think it stops you from living. But, my point is give him time, let him get back. It's not too long. I believe from now to the end of the year, if Booker doesn't get it together, then his chairmanship would have failed. So let's give him that time. The last thing I want to point out is very simple. When you listen to the interview, it comes right to what the brother is saying. All right? You're gone. You were defeated by a WIA. Whether it's defeat or whether it's rejection or whatever, you didn't win as president. The bottom line here for Ambassador Boyka is to state his vision, which I agree with the brother. And he has to contain Costa. All right? People are getting tired of it. And, Cummings has to contain his people also. The CPP has to come together. You understand? Don't get me started on the flip side with Ambassador Weir, because then I would start asking the brother why he left CDC and the rest of it. The thing with us as Liberians, I will land on this note, is that when you fail, people don't have to look at failure. And the media is so open, everybody's eyes are so open, even people can see, you got to call a spade a spade. If we have fails, which I think the brother is saying in the last 4 years, he has 2 years to make up. You understand what I'm saying, right? But honestly, you're not going to fool anybody here. The infrastructure of the country is not there. But he said to me on the MCDL, even the institution or even the sub-monitoring system is broken down. Security is collapsing. It's a frantic nightmare in Liberia. It's almost a death row, okay? So WIA has his own work cut out. At the end of the day, if WIA doesn't change his forces or his ministers or whatever, we would say that he has failed because the country is sliding. Boykai has to be given a chance to see whether he fails in unifying the CPP. Do I think the CPP should exist? Yes. The CPP still stands until it falls apart. Cummings has to do his work. Boykai has to do his work. Hewitt needs to be quiet. Costa needs to shut up. And, let's get the house in order. And I will end right there, agreeing with some of the things the brother said about Boykai, and, I disagree respectfully with a few things he said. I think that's where I stand.
Okay, so for the viewers, those of you who just coming on, this is the Liberian Radio and Television Network. We're live with J. Rennie Dapo and Mr. Dean Wilson. We want to welcome you. We want you to keep following us as we give you a full coverage on happenings and updates in the Liberian community as well as the tri-state area. We want to say thank you for coming on. Sit back, relax. We're going to take our second break and we'll be right back.
What's up, my Philadelphians? It's your boy McGarris and your boy Cash. We just want to take the time to just promote or get you guys to go out and take your COVID vaccine. COVID is very serious here, especially in the Philadelphia or tri-state area, I should say. Please go out and take your vaccine. The CDC has just released new guidelines that people who are fully vaccinated can go into areas without wearing masks. I'm sure you guys want to go out and have a good time, and it's summertime and we are all outside. So definitely do your due diligence and go get your COVID vaccine.
It's real. What the man said, that's true. It's real, man. Go out there and get your vaccine.
My name is Portia Kamara. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Multicultural Community Family Services.
Okay, and we're back. We're back, and we have Mr. Dean Wilson is here with us, and we also have Mr. Rennie Dapple. Uh, I want to bring Mr. Dean, Mr. the both guys on, and so guys, let me give you guys the opportunity to. I want to ask you guys a question, Mr. This is to Mr. Dean Wilson. Mr. Wilson, if you have the opportunity to sit with the president and speak directly with him one on one, what will you say to him concerning the
I,
country?
I will be first Liberian. Again, I'm not sedition. I'm not a UP partisan. I'm not um, ANC, LP, all of those different things. I think the question is, and I also asked Ambassador Boyka, I asked one question in the hall. If you were to be president, how often would he talk to the Liberian people? For me personally, I'm not going to ask the president that question. I will ask him whether whether or not he understands there's a disconnect. It's almost like Rome is burning, whether it's the security sector, the massive, missing people, killings, or whatever. And I will ask the president to take charge of the situation because it has the propensity to erode the democracy we enjoy today. Because it's beginning. It's clear to us at nighttime Liberia is dark. I mean, and even if anything, I would want him to speak more to his people. The other part I would say to the president, the other piece is that, um, in all fairness, uh, he has to be more apt to understanding that the impression the public and opposition and other well-meaning Liberians, the impression that they are also feeling is not only that he doesn't communicate, but it's almost as if though he's isolated from his own government. Now, there's two different things. Communication is one piece that we all have experienced. Every president who has gotten or interim head has done. But there's a difference between communication, and I'm getting this feeling as to not being part of his own government. We hear more tours, we hear more McGill, we hear everyone else. And not only is he not communicating, but also there's a disconnect in that area. And I will just give my honest advice. I'm older than the president. I have been, around as a student, activist from the late '70s. I saw the rights riots. I saw Liberia go through changes. So the security of the country is eroding. I want him to please pay attention to it, and I will say in a positive way. And I also want him to be even more hands-on in terms of how his government is functioning or operating. I mean, that would be my only advice to him. I will have no questions for him. I can only give. I can only be in an advisory, you know, position if I have something to say to him. Those two areas, we are feeling disconnected, but then also we feel that our president isn't talking to us. We feel he's disconnected and he isn't communicating with us. I think those are the two things I will. I
Okay,
believe
Mr.
it.
Tapos, to you too.
Well, I mean, I have said it so many times, but because of your audience here, I have to repeat myself. Like I said, I campaign for this government, and almost everything that Mr. Wilson has presented here are things that I have reiterated from time to time, most especially with communication. Communication. The government, I don't know whether there is a taboo that they shouldn't communicate with the Liberian people and that will keep them going. But if that is the case, that theory is not working well because we're seeing the backlash, we're seeing the backlog of things happening in the country, and the people look up to their leader. I don't think Mr. Weah ran on a platform where he said that if I become president, I will be mute on everything. And my lesson learned from Mr. Weah activities, especially engaging the population or people, is because there isn't any uh, document or let's say commitment for Liberian people to hold him up to. And technically, he could come out and say, "Look, on my platform, I didn't say I would commit myself to you guys because there's no document there." As in seeing in his son, he could be right technically by default because there must be some commitment that he must have with the Liberian people. Now, why it is true that that is debatable, and it's my opinion, which is debatable also, and that is why I'm calling for the fact that we need to have a party leader or political leader that will begin to change the game, change the rule by putting in place a political party statement of purpose, because a political party statement of purpose will now be a living document that we out here can hold them up to. Mr. Weah government has the propensity, has the tendency, has the practice, and has adopted the behavior of not communicating to the people. They see the people as their opponent. And if you have that kind of peer view of things, then you will behave just as someone who see an opponent. And I think that one of the reasons that is blocking them from coming forward with information. Because like Dean and I, this is our first time meeting on the platform, and I believe we haven't met before. But there are concrete things that we are coming together, forming a chemistry to have a denominator, a common denominator that align with what we believe will be the best in the best interest of Boyka and the other political leader, including President Weah. But unlike uh, Dean and myself, I mean, it doesn't happen in the CDC government like that. No, they are very, very consecutive in terms of opening up. And as they remain more mute, we see what is happening. So, like I said, I have provided a lot of insight to them, and they have not been able to pay any attention. And one question you asked initially, whether there should be some form of reshuffle, I don't think Mr. Weah really believe in reshuffling. What I think Mr. Weah reason for not going for reshuffling is because it's how Mr. Weah designed his leadership to be, and that is as long you listen to Mr. Weah, you accept everything he says, you don't see criticism, Mr. Weah will take you forever until his government is done. But is that the right way to do things? No, that's not the right way to do things. He needs to be able to challenge his leaders. Take, for example, the Millennium Challenge program that they fail in. Do you think if Mr. Weah were challenging each of a cabinet minister, having weekly meeting, conference call, asking them what they're doing to make the government successful, do you think we'll be to where we are today? No. And it boils down to the same what Dean was talking about, communication. So I don't think the element of leadership, I don't think Mr. Weah grabbed the concept. And I think one of the limitation to that is the people he has around him. They either want to either know everything, but in reality, they don't have the experience. They may have the intellectual education, but the experiential quality, they don't have these things. And they are not also willing to listen to gentlemen that Mr. Wilson out here who is giving these things. And if they think what to replay before seditions, they would not accept what Mr. Wilson is saying here. And I'm speaking for a vast experience of interacting with them. And that is why I'm challenging every opposition leader. Because whatever we are is rejecting, I know Uncle Boka want us to not use that word rejection, but we have to bring that word for him to be able to use that. But everything that they are rejecting, we have to make sure that we inject that into the system so that they can accept it. And that include constructive criticism as well. So as far as the government goes, everyone, the unborn child will even say, I don't know if my mom told me I ever heard the president talking. I want to hear people out there talking and there's nobody talking. That's to what point we have come. And the insecurity. And one thing I said during the election, predictability and stability are the two fundamental pillars that will bring investors to the country. And I don't think Mr. Weir really learned that lesson. They can go anywhere and talk to investors. As long as there is not stability and predictability in the country, he will not get what he wants. So I agree with Dean also that insecurity is really maxing up. Yes, insecurity is maxing up so much. And I think that would be tested based on the bicentennial they're talking about. Maybe other people from other background, but mostly Liberian. I think Liberian will scale back, not only because of COVID, I think because of the indiscriminate killing and we don't have closure or ongoing investigation, or the police apparatus is not giving assurance to the people. These are things we instability.
Yeah.
But let me add into
Let,
what
hold
let me
on
add
one minute.
into what the
Mr.
brother is
Wilson.
saying.
We're running short with time, but let me ask you
Yeah, but
this
let me just
before you
give me
add to
one
him.
minute
Let
to
me give you
add
one
into what.
question.
Give me a chance, please, Joe, please.
Okay, go ahead. Go
So
ahead,
let
Mr.
me
Wilson.
say
Go
one
ahead.
thing, because the brother was probably a sedition, but let's not, the same way we've put the brunt on Weir. You are going to Minnesota this weekend, am I right, sir?
I'm going to Charlotte, North
Okay, you're
Carolina.
going to Charlotte. I'm sorry, there's something else in Minnesota.
Yeah.
What I would want you to ask Cummings, and I know that we hear from this program, just like Weir is taking a hit, I have a hit for VP Boycott, former VP, and Cummings.
Okay.
There are four leaders in the CPP. There's Cummings, Boycott, Yumbly, and Ure. Clearly, there are only two that are running for president. Ure is not, Yumbly is not. I will encourage Ambassador Boycott when he gets home. And as much as I will encourage Mr. Cummings also, get in the room with Ure Yumbly and Boycott and Cummings. Either Cummings will say it or Ambassador Boycott will say, are you running for president? No. Yumbly, are you running for president? No. You both are sitting, you're not running. Okay, please excuse us. I would want to see Boycott and Cummings having a conversation as to where the CPP is going. And from that conversation, right, the rank and file will fall in line.
Mm-hmm.
Who will be VP, who will be this, whether they will have a primary, whether they will not, whether they will stay together or not. Right now, Yumbly and Ure are both below that tier. The upper tier is between the both of them. Yeah. And it will define what leadership is. So if you want to shout that, we can ask Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings, have you ever sat with Mr. Boycott? Yes, I have. Have you ever sat with Mr. Boycott with Yumbly and Ure present? No, I have not. Okay, you need to go back. Or what is the view that Mr. Wilson or someone said you need to go back and face-to-face with Ambassador Boycott and talk about the future of our country. So as much as we sat here and President Weir took a lot of hit, I want to be fair and buttress the brother out. He's not speaking as a sedition. He's speaking as a Liberian. The same criticism for the seditious, the same we must give to the CPP. The brunt of what fills in Weir's government rests on Weir and nobody else. Mm-hmm. And the brunt of what's filling in CPP rests on only Boycott and only Cummings because the other two are not running for president. My best note on all of this is that I dare any Liberian to disagree with me. If we have a real president who sets and lead by example, Liberia will turn around in a year. Yeah. Because we, as Liberians, we have a culture of following our leader. Yeah. If God gives us a good leader, that country will turn around in a year. Yeah. It doesn't have to be through any magic or any brutal hands or anything. If you lead by example and live by example, right, that country will turn around. And you know, I think it's my ending statement, but if you want to go far, you know, I've had enough for the night as well.
Okay, so before you leave, before we leave,
right,
he's saying that it's up to the leader. Okay, Mr. I will come to Mr. Dapo, then I will come back to Mr. Dean Wilson for closing. Now, do you think the WIA administration still have time on the side to make a comeback?
Well, I just think they just have time to fill all the tank because right now they are running 60-40. So in order to level out, they just need to make things because project take months and months go to year. So whatever they want to do, because they put it plan themselves, they were more self-centered for the past 2.5 years, and now things are caught up with them. So I just think they just have to look at what they had achieved, build a rapport with the people, and ask them to give them the opportunity to be able to do their best. But I think the challenge there is what Mr. Wilson alluded to.
Okay.
Mr. We are 2.5 years. I mean, 3.5 years has proven that this is what his limitations are. And I think to overcome that will be the fact that he will start to make changes. If it will be a very big sacrifice, he has to make the sacrifice. It's just that you play your card game. You are giving all your A's, everything, but you have that joker card. You got to use it. Whether it's going to be somebody big that you're going to swap for somebody else, if that's what the Liberian people needs. And you see, one thing the president failed to realize, and I thank God I'm not the only person that has said it so far, and I think Wilson said it here very good. If the president continue to have town hall meeting communication, he will be able to see exactly what the people want, and it will be an easy case for him to win the next time. Because the people are the one who are your HR, so to speak. They are the one going to hire you. They will tell you what the problems are. And if you understand the problem and start to solve this problem, easy case for you. But the president is not in our business or listening or doing more listening. Now, another thing I fail to answer here is the CPP. Why it is true that it's always 50+1, I think the idea of bringing the CPP together is to beat that number. Is to beat that number and keep the unity and consistency. Because rather than each of the guys going individually and then in the second round they start to negotiate, why don't we get out of the negotiation? If you watch the show Bible one, where Martin Lawrence was driving the car and you're like chasing after the bad guy, you have the right to remain silent. And then we were asking and said, but what are you doing? So I'm trying to get out all the way for it. Because when I get that guy, we're going straight to the main point. So I think the CPP idea of bringing the guys together is a very fun idea. It's just that there are some people who are very egotistic in the whole thing. And to the point in the game, let Ure and Boga be the one to set the tone here. Because one thing I know about Liberian people, we always say, my man.
You and Cummings and Boaka, not you and then.
Yeah, Cummings and Boaka. Thanks for the correction. Cummings and Boaka need to be the front runner over there. Whether one going to be the VP or one going to be the presidential candidate, let two of them now start to put things in place. The time is limited. They don't have enough time. The idea of having these skirmishes of you say and I say is not healthy. Because Cummings is a supporter, Ure normally, and including Chairman Walker now, they all got supporter. But if we split them, then you'll be defining the principle of achieving a horse that can ask them will fall, and that will give CDC the opportunity to blow them up. So let them think about what he said today, and I think that's something that we look forward to. You go into North Carolina, why don't you start with that question first? So that
exactly right. Start with that question with comments.
Yeah,
I mean, my brother,
you're so right. I want to
yes.
say thank you to Mr. Dean Wilson for accepting our invite, and also to you, Mr. Dapple is one of our panelists. So I'm going to be going to North Carolina, and we're going to be having the program. According to my sources, we're going to have access to most of the officials from the ANC. So, Dean, Mr. Wilson, I would love for you to be a part of the panelists, and we're going to bring Mr. Cummings and some of the officials, and we're going to ask some major questions so you guys can have the opportunity. Lrtn, we are not for profit. We service the community. We belong to no political party. This network is for the Liberian community, Liberian, African, and Caribbean community in the East Coast. So it would be nice to have outsiders, people who are neutral or from other places, to come and ask a question. So I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Dean Wilson, for coming. Mr. Dapple, you always on here. And we're looking forward again to see you guys. And I want to just give you maybe on the second to close up. And we'll start with the new and handsome face we have here called Mr. Dean Wilson. To close up first.
You got to allow him to accept first. You offer him the job. You got to allow him to accept.
Will you accept, Mr. Wilson?
No, I believe I enjoyed the conversation with Lrtn and my dear brother Dapple. I also, I think we're gelling. In closing, I would talk as for myself, like they say, me, myself, and I. Yeah. I'm first Liberian.
Yeah.
I'm not partisan to or supporter of WIA. CDC. I'm not in any way a unity party to anyone, to even ANC or LP or whatever. I'm fresh Liberian. And it's about time we start looking through the Liberian lens. Then there's surrogating, and what is becoming overwhelming for some of us, it has been, sort of clouding the right voices. LRT, and I wish us you very well. I'm accepting your invitation. Dapo, your candid and your frank tune is a rarity in these times. As you said, whether Seditians like it, whether Ambassador Boycott likes it, or Cummings, or whatever, unfortunately, except you add cassette to the narrative, we have three people that are running: Cummings for president, Boycott and Cassette. I don't know if where Gonglo is in all of this, but if they can't take, and we are is also, I believe, going for re-election. So Liberian first. Please allow me. Let me tell the Liberian. Allow me to plead to you. Yeah. I mean, you ain't gotta agree with me, my man. You ain't gotta, chop my neck off either. You ain't gotta come after me. I got all right. That's what America has taught me, and all I can do to be Liberian first. If you think I'm not supposed to talk because you are not CDC man or not this other man,
Speaking of
that your problem right there. Yeah, I don't know.
Real English coming on.
Yeah, so I don't know how they want to do it, my man. But everybody got a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Let me talk my own. You tell my man. If you didn't like it, it don't mean to come after me.
Yeah.
I mean, we just do it without insults.
That's true.
Or without disrespecting.
That's
but I
good.
look forward to working with you. I look forward to working with my man.
Thank you.
LRT. I don't know how you do it, but with the limited resources, you by yourself.
Yeah.
You're making it happen. We pray that your voice will get louder and louder and louder. You get more resources to expand.
Yeah.
That's good.
But please do not forget the question to comments this weekend.
Yeah.
And if you have a way of having someone in Minnesota, just ask him when he's going to put Yuri and Yombi outside the room and speak to Boykai directly.
True.
And I will end on that note. It's been a real healthy airlifting. Let me take a deep breath. It's been a wonderful Friday evening, my man, for you guys inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Dapo?
Well, I'm not stranger, as you said. And Dean, just so you know, there's another side of me. That is, I have my own show. I got my own post. And I'm very straightforward. I'm very straightforward. And I, because of the stand I had taken so far, I mean, I had people come out and telling me that they should put my picture up at RIA. So when I get there, the government can arrest me. And I had that video. I kept that video and stuff like that. And there are guys in this country too who may try against me. But thank God, I reported them to the Department of Homeland Security. And I think things that kind of sees down a little bit. Like you said, we are Liberians. Our utterance, as long as it is in the right place, based on freedom of expression, I don't think any Liberian should be very emotional to come after us. Yeah. So I do have my platform. I call that tabletop discussion, where I go in depth with issue. I discuss things. I mean, like I always say, Joe will tell you that on the platform, nobody is safe there. I may be critiquing Boca today and CDC people will be clapping, but when I get on CDC people, so that gave me the background that I see things fluctuating. The more you talk about one party, the number go up. When you start to hit that party, the number goes down. So I see how they react because they just love praises from their party. And there's nothing wrong with that. But why is it true that we got left hand and right hand? When things go right, you praise it. Things go wrong, you praise it. So again, I would like to say a big thank you to you. I saw you doing the action with Uncle Joe. And I thought that tonight your expression is well in place. And I also look forward working with you. And I think if we together can get to clue more people of that same mindset you have, I think we'll do the best and as time go back. So Joe, thank you so much for the time. And I appreciate you so much for everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for being on the show. And that's Team Osin and Mr. Rennie Dapo. Thank you guys very much. And I will see you again. So to the audience, I want to say thank you for watching, and you got to keep with us, follow us. We are going to Charlotte, North Carolina. We're going to be there, and I'm hoping to have the opportunity to speak to Mr. Cummings and the rest of the officials that will be in Charlotte, North Carolina for the convention 2020. We're hoping to bring that to you live. We have the team set up. We're going to be flying on Friday. We want you to sit close by your TV. Follow us. We're asking you to also donate. We're going to put the cash out number on the screen when we get in Charlotte or before we leave. We're going to keep updating you on everything. We're going to be all over the place. We want to give you the best quality video that you can get, the best broadcast. So we're working on that. If you watch the town hall meeting with Honorable Bouaka, same thing. Vice President Bouaka is going to be the same thing in Charlotte, but it's going to be better. So we're hoping if you're in Charlotte area, listen, get in touch with us. If you are community leaders, get in touch with us. We're going to come over there and we're going to talk to you. Just tell us what's happening in Charlotte, how's Charlotte. And I already have friends cooking for us. They want to do a lot of things for us. They can't wait to see us. So I want to say thank you to the ANC for giving us the invitation and allowing us to go to Charlotte, North Carolina and stream the program. I want to say thank you very much. Relax. And this is how we end it. Good night.
I leave my own way, go yeah, go yeah, go yeah. Me, I leave my own way, go yeah, go yeah, go yeah. When you go steal it, get you for girlie. Oh, you walk like a buck and rock jelly, faye.
My name is Alexander Cummings, and I want to work with honest men and women to change Liberia for the better. I want to open the doors of governance to all capable persons. I want to use the collective brain power of all of our men and women. I want to build a nation of self-sufficiency. I want to build an environment that thrives on and promotes a vibrant Liberian private sector. I want to ensure that we are a nation where education is key in all of our national development priorities. I want to create and nurture a development agenda that ensures our young people have jobs when they graduate from school. I want to create an environment where our women have access to equal opportunities in every aspect of our society. I want to promote a system that uses our country's natural resources for the benefit of all. I want to see our country flourish beyond our wildest imagination. We are capable of doing it if we work together. We may not all agree all of the time, but we can set aside our differences and work towards charting a new course without the infighting, backbiting, and backstabbing. Whether you're a member of the ANC, ALP, LP, or UP, we must channel our support for individual candidates into championing our collective objective, defeating the Weah administration in the 2023 presidential and legislative elections, and ushering in a governance more prepared, more capable, more experienced, more skilled, and more honest men and women. With your help, we can move Liberia to being a better country. I thank you. God bless you and God bless Liberia.